Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay, so tonight I'm chairing the meeting. Please bear with me. The first item on the agenda is emergency services. And Joan, are we expecting anyone to give any reports tonight from emergency services? Okay. Moving on to old business. The headquarters road bridge update for tonight is that on February 9th, there was a conference call that was held between Rich and Terry, Steve Balla, and Doug Bond. During that conference call, it was determined, sorry, having trouble here, that the boring information that PennDOT has previously provided isn't all that is needed to determine if the what kind of temporary structure can be put in place. So we need to do additional digging and figure out how thick the abutments are at the bottom. We are waiting on a scope of work from Doug Bond. Once that's received, then Steve Balla, the township engineer, he'll be able to move forward and reach out to PennDOT for information as to what they will need from the township to give the township permission to do the work in their right of way near the bridge. And once we have the scope of work, we'll also be in a position to reach out to the adjacent property owners. Under old business, this item 2, the update on real estate tax collection and resolution 022-123.01. Steve, does this need to be read? Okay. Well, but I have a motion to.
Well, I think you ought to say what the resolution is for.
Okay.
So if anybody has a specific question regarding the resolution,
That makes
they
sense.
can ask it.
So resolution number 022-123.01 is a resolution specifying the fees to be charged by expenses reimbursed by the township, depository of real estate taxes, reporting of real estate tax collection, and the compensation rate and requirements of the tax collector of Tinicum Township, Bucks County.
That's for the new tax collector that was appointed last week.
Correct.
Into the mic, please.
Yeah. So on February 16th, the Board of Supervisors had a special meeting, and at that meeting, we appointed a new tax collector. Her name is, oh my gosh,
Deborah Yerger.
thank you. Her name is Deborah Ann Yerger, and she is the tax collector for Springfield Township. We, at that same meeting, we entered into an agreement with Springfield Township to kind of share the tax collector. So she'll be collecting taxes for both townships for this current year. And the resolution that we are considering tonight reflects her fees that she would be charging residents of Tinicum to collect the taxes.
So you need a motion to adopt the resolution, although I would recommend that on the second page, the third paragraph where it says notice of the bank depository for Tinicum Township real estate taxes and a list of tax collector deputies for the purpose of accepting and receiving payments will be given to the township prior to the year the elected tax collector officer begins his or her term. this is not an elected tax collector, it's an appointed tax collector, and obviously can't give the township notice prior to the year prior to their beginning their term. So I think it ought to just say, for the purpose of accepting and receiving payments will be promptly given to the township.
Okay.
With that amendment, I think that the resolution can be adopted by the township.
Okay. So with that amendment reflected, may I have a motion to adopt the resolution on behalf of the township?
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second. All in favor?
Any questions?
Any questions?
Here we go.
Yes, please.
I'm Tom Casola, Cedar Hill Lane. I did watch the video of the special meeting you had, and I understood and appreciated some of the explanations that were provided. My question really is, it wasn't clear to me what was the issue with the elected tax collector. I gathered he wasn't performing. I never had any issue personally, and I understand there were problems, but if you could just sort of summarize the nature of those problems.
Sure. So over the course of 2022, there were many instances where either bills were sent late or they weren't sent at all, where payments received were not processed promptly or sometimes at all. In addition, property owners who were engaging in real estate transactions or trying to get transactions completed, they were not able to obtain property certifications like tax certifications from the tax collector. And that's a document that's needed prior to closing. So, there was a lot of frustration from residents in the township, which resulted in many, many dozens of phone calls into the township office, and it created really an unreasonable burden, administrative burden on the staff here in the office. In addition, Rich and I, we met with the former tax collector in May of 2022, and we offered our assistance. We were trying to understand what processes he had in place, because the volume of information flowing in and out of that office, of that role, is significant. And we were trying to understand how he was trying to make things work on his end. We then subsequently met with him in November of 2022. And at that point, it was our understanding that he had been working with a mentor that he was connected with through the County Township Officials Association.
Mentor, and possibly getting a deputy that was going to assist him in getting these bills out and getting the reconciliation, if you will, of the money that we received. And by the way, there's been some errors with that.
Right.
So we're still trying to sort that out.
And
so there was a myriad of problems we were having.
And we should be clear, there is no suggestion of any criminal conduct, any kind of impropriety in that regard. But the law requires that by January 15th of the current year, the tax collector is required to submit the settlement of all the duplicates that they received from the previous year. And that did not happen. To date, it hasn't happened. So when that doesn't happen, the Board of Supervisors is required to appoint a new tax collector in their stead. So that's what we did last Thursday.
Yeah, and the county notified the township that it was not going to send the tax duplicates to the elected township tax collector because he had failed to settle the taxes for the year, and the county specifically asked that the township replace the tax collector. And then there's a provision or provisions of the local tax collection law that specify when you can do this, how you can do that, and all those elements were followed.
Okay, so he just wasn't getting the job done, basically.
That's correct.
In a nutshell, that's correct.
Thank you. I just appreciate the
Yeah.
explanation.
Thanks, Tom.
Anita Nolan, resident. I just wondered how long the Springfield Township tax collector will stay in place, and will we have on a future ballot a new tax collector position, and when will that occur? That, will it go with on the next regular tax collector period, which I think is a 4-year term?
That's correct. It is a 4-year term. And Steve, this was a question that I had for you, a couple of
The-
weeks ago.
Yep. We received an email from the assistant county solicitor that represents the election board. And he said any vacancy that occurred prior to February 14th, which is the 13th Tuesday prior to the primary, would go on the primary ballot. A vacancy occurring after this and prior to the 60th day before the election would go on the November ballot, where the parties could nominate a candidate. And then he cites the various sections that apply. But so that would seem to indicate that the parties are permitted to file nomination papers instead of nominating petitions to get on the November ballot.
Right. 'Cause
But
we're too late for the
yeah.
primary.
Under the local tax collection law, it says that if there's a vacancy, you can appoint a joint tax collector, which was done, who has to agree to serve for the remainder of the term of the elected tax collector, which would be until December 31st, 2025. So one of the questions we've asked the Board of Elections is to advise
Who has precedence?
which has precedence.
Yeah.
And he said, we've never run into this problem before, but we will decide it and get back to you. So
Okay.
that's still up in the air.
All right, thank you.
Larry Brandt, residents, just a quick confirmation question. So is it my understanding correct that the expense to the township is instead of what we pay the current tax collector, not in addition to?
That's correct.
That it's not an additional cost to us?
Well, the cost will in fact be greater than the cost that the cost for the new tax collector is higher than the cost for the elected tax collector, but it's not
But it's
being
not a
paid
duplicate.
twice.
Got it. Thank you. I didn't see that.
Anita, did you have another comment? Or
No.
Okay. Any further comment on this item? Okay. So with the amended language for the resolution, may I have a motion to adopt the resolution for the township? And I'll second. All in favor? Aye. The next item on the agenda is volunteer board appointments. We did have, Rich and I met with a new applicant, but because Jim isn't here, we are going to table that agenda item for the next meeting so that we can discuss it with among the three of us. So under announcements, the first item is regarding the passing of Robert Sukup. He was a longtime Irwina resident and Tinicum Civic Association volunteer. Robert passed away on January 30th of 2023. For the last decade or more of his life, he worked tirelessly to find an organization that would take on caretaker responsibilities of the historic Irwin Cemetery, which was situated in the southeast corner of his property on River Road. Members of the founding family of Irwina are buried in that plot. As a result of Robert's efforts and the efforts of those who joined him along the way, momentum had been building towards a solution. Within days of his passing, representatives of the Heritage Conservancy took a meeting with someone who was championing Robert's cause, and the Heritage Conservancy agreed to receive donations on behalf of the cemetery project. We are grateful for Robert's hard work and dedication in preserving this historic burial ground. When details are made available on how to make a contribution to the Heritage Conservancy for the cemetery project, we will post a link on the township website. The next item is regarding Tinicum's Earth Day Fair, which will be held on April 22nd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Tinicum Township Community Park, which is the park off of 611 behind Cooper Mechanical. We still need volunteers to help work to make this event a huge success. So anyone who is here in the room or watching from home who is interested in volunteering, please send an email to eac@tinicumbucks.org. The third announcement is about the Tinicum Conservancy's amphibian crossing. Beginning in mid-March, spotted salamanders, wood frogs, and spring peepers migrate from their winter burrows to their ancestral pools to breed. The Tinicum Conservancy is looking for volunteers to help these amphibians to safely cross Perry Auger Road. For more information, please go to the Tinicum Conservancy's website at tinicumconservancy.org. And finally, we have a brief announcement about the Sinking Springs production that kind of was the buzz around town last week and over the weekend. We understand that it has wrapped here in Tinicum. And what we wanted to make sure everybody knew was that our police officers who may have been there working kind of the roadway in the area of the filming, the township was paid for their time at a rate of $100 per hour. And finally, the board is recognizing the resignation of a member of the Land Preservation Committee that was received last Thursday. Rob Galdo has resigned, and the board would like to thank Rob for the contributions that he made to the LPC and his volunteer service to the township. And I suppose we will be posting an opening for that committee on the township website, so interested volunteers can apply. For regular business, we have 2 sets of meeting minutes to approve. Can I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes from February 7th, 2022 as written?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And with regard to the meeting minutes from February 16th, I'm sorry, these say 2022, but it is actually 2023. With regard to the meeting minutes for February 16th, 2023, this special meeting that we had, may I have a motion to approve those minutes as written?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The treasurer's report and budget recap.
Has that been placed on the board, Joan? Do you know? I'm sorry? It has. Okay. It usually when she gives it on our package, that's been posted. Should be January. Yep. Okay. And that's really probably the wrong time to look at it because it's only 1 month of revenue and expenses. It's really not indicative of what's happening, but we're encouraged that it's going to continue to follow a good path.
Okay. Payroll report for period ending February 10th, 2023 in the amount of $34,481.89. I have a motion to approve the payroll report.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're reviewing the list of disbursements. I don't have any questions about them.
Neither do I.
Okay.
So you're making the motion to approve it?
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay. And then we don't have anything listed for zoning hearing.
Still gotta vote.
Got to vote.
Oh, sorry.
Aye. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You made
All
the
in
motion.
all in favor, aye. Okay, it passes. We don't have anything scheduled for the zoning hearing board. And under subdivision land development. Do I need to read all of this, Steve?
No, I think all you need to. With the Trenton Farms, the township is still waiting
Mhm.
for revised plans. When the revised plans come in, they'll be reviewed by the planning commission. It's currently, plans are currently scheduled before the Board of Supervisors for March 21, 2023, but that's really just a holding date because there's time limits within which the township has to act. So whether or not it'll be ready to go on that agenda or not, who knows? But
Right.
that's the current schedule.
Okay, thank you. And we have arrived at public comment. Is there any public comment?
John Cole, resident. I just also would like to express appreciation to Rob Gaudo and his service to our Land Preservation Committee. I only worked with him for a couple of years, but I noted him to be very dedicated and passionate about land preservation, which we all know we need to do to help maintain our rural way of life. And I wish him very well. And again, thanks for his work with us.
Thank you, John. Is there any further public comment?
Hi, I'm John Romelli. I'm a Tinicum resident. We're losing electricity a lot down in the southern end of the township. Most of the time it's because of falling trees along River Road and along Cafferty Road. Are there any ordinances requiring owners to remove dead trees that are close to the road or close to wires? And if not, would you consider one at some point? I'm not asking for instant gratification this evening. It's just that it's happening. I think we've lost electricity 9 times in 6 months. Everybody's generators are going if you have one. So was wondering if we could do something about this. So thank you.
I don't know if we have an ordinance, Steve. Do you recall that?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
You turned it off.
Or did I turn it off?
Turned it
Okay. Well, in any event,
Okay, but it's certainly something we should. look
Yes.
into.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you, John, for that.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks,
Appreciate
John.
it.
Anything else? All right, seeing no further public comment, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night.
Hold the record now for the quickest.
Thank you.